Too Good To Go. We are a social enterprise looking to curb food waste. So I think we'll start off by introducing the issue. So food waste. So I'm going to make this a bit interactive. I guess how many people could hazard a guess with the amount of bread that we throw away each day in the UK or in the world?
Lots.
Lots. That's a good starting point. Do we think sort of thousands? Hundreds of thousands?
Millions.
Millions?
How many?
1 million?
1 million? It's a bit more than that. A bit more than 3 million. Even more than 5 million. It's 24 million.
24 million slices, that is. Yeah.
Slices of bread, which is ridiculous. And I think the issue with food waste, it's, Chris likes to have an anecdote about the cars.
Which one? Oh, yeah. So if we stopped, if we ate all the food that we wasted, then it would have the same effect to our environment of taking 1 in 4 cars off the road. So I mean, it really is a huge global impact, and perhaps we're guilty of maybe being a bit short-sighted about it in some contexts. And the fact that when you see food thrown in the bin, as Nick touched on earlier, when you walk out the back of a supermarket and you see food, everyone does have this gut reaction, this reaction where they're like, well, that is just shocking. But because you don't see it all the time, because it's not something that is constantly in the mainstream media, it's not something that we're all experiencing. But yeah, facts such as the one about the cars, and then, for example, if food waste for a country, the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases after the USA and China, and it's ridiculous. So what our platform is trying to raise awareness of that, first and foremost.
Yeah, and I think that there is, it highlights the extremity of the issue, which is something that we don't really realise is a massive impact, and it's something that is huge, and it does need changing. And I think I can say myself, in the past few years, I didn't realise the scale of the issue of food waste, and the wool was taken from behind my eyes. Is that the same? And it's this here, as again Chris is saying, it's about raising awareness, but it's profit for purpose. So it's a business with a social impact, and it's sort of, I guess, found a single issue, and we're trying to address that and alleviate food waste. So there's some actually really horrifying statistics when you sort of find out how much we're spending on food waste. In 2015 we spent £19 billion, which is a lot of money, and even more when you realise we spent £8.5 billion on the police budget. So in a securitized state which we're living in, we're spending more on an issue which doesn't need to exist than our own safety. And I think that there is quite perplexing, and again, something which I think we're all in the dark about. We don't realise the scale of food waste, and this is what we're trying to address. So we're all about placing the value back onto food as something that should be eaten and not thrown away. So we're here to reduce food waste, protect the planet, protect the environment, battle social inequality by making affordable meals, and we'll go on to sort of explain what it is we're doing, because you're probably thinking, what are we right now? But we're also a self-sustaining social enterprise. So we want to organically fund ourselves, but I mean, as a social enterprise, being different to a charity. So people often think to us and they say, oh, you should be in existence to work for free, or this food should be going to charity. But again, as Chris is saying, it's about raising the awareness of food waste in general, and it's bringing a consumer into a field which has been primarily dominated by the voluntary sector.
And just to touch on that as well, we have got all the environmental goals, we're quite philosophical in that we want to reduce food waste to help protect the planet, but we've also got social initiatives through the app, which we'll go on to in a second. But one of our fundamental beliefs is that it's not right where we live in a society that's characterised on one side by excess and overproduction and overconsumption, and then on the other side we have a record number of people collecting emergency food parcels last year from food banks. You can quite often see destitute people on the street for example, outside a supermarket, that can be thrown away food. So these are two things that shouldn't really coexist. I think the statistic is for every person on the planet, we're producing 4,500 calories a day, and the average recommended daily allowance is only 2,000 calories. So we're actually producing over double what each person needs on the planet, and yet we still have 1 billion people going to bed hungry every single night around the world. So by no means are we saying that we're setting out to achieve that, because that would be a big ambition. I mean, if we can get that, that would be really cool. But yeah, we're just trying to raise awareness and place the value back onto food as something that should be eaten and not thrown away. So we should probably tell you a little bit about how we're trying to do that, or who is trying to do that, should I say.
So yeah, ourselves here. So this lovely cartoonized photos of ourselves. So I'm Jamie. Probably should have started with this really. So Jamie and Chris, and a bit about myself and our story. So I actually come from a human rights background. Studied law for many years, worked for various NGOs, and then ended up here, which isn't the most regular path, but I don't think any entrepreneur really does. And I guess where the issue of food waste came to light for ourselves, myself and Chris, we met up in Leeds in 2010, and in 2012 there was an initiative called the Real Junk Food Project, which was founded by Adam Smith. And at the time I was working with Amnesty International, and I didn't really realise the scale of food waste at all. And this here is a project which is again about addressing food waste, about addressing food poverty. And working with Amnesty International, we ended up actually having these guys cater some of our fundraising events and things like that. And it was just ridiculous when you realise the amount of food which we were throwing away. And that's there where we sort of came into contact, I guess, with the issue of food waste. And since then, it's been something that's been, pestering us in the back of the mind. And Chris's story is something similar as well.
Yeah, so as Jamie said, we met at Leeds 6 years ago. So yeah, we've been stuck together for 6 years now. And then, I graduated last year from a Masters in International Business, and then came pretty much straight into this on the back of that. But throughout my Masters, I thought Nick's presentation was really interesting actually, because I'm really big on corporate social responsibility and stuff like shared value, and I'm a big believer that businesses should be heading in the direction where they're being more considerate to society, and then using their profit to help give back in the way that Nick's described in his presentation. So yeah, I finished the Masters last year, at the back end of last year, and then came straight into this on the back of that. And then we've got a team of guys around us that are helping us out. So we're about 10, 15 volunteers around the country now, and yeah, we're constantly looking to expand. But yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about our app if you go to the next slide.
So yeah, you're probably now wondering what we actually are and what we actually do. So we're a web app-based platform which is allowing restaurants to sell on their surplus food. And again, this here is quite a hurdle, because if you guys are thinking that, you're probably thinking about food off people's plates or food from the bins, which you would be surprised. We have gone to business meetings and people have thought that we were selling food off plates and food from the bin, but we're not. And as we've said so far, it's about placing the value back on the food as something that should be eaten and not thrown away. So we throw away, as we've said, 24 million slices of bread each day. The restaurant industry in Europe throw away 600,000 tons of food each day. 1/3 of all food produced is thrown away. So there's so much food being thrown away, and you just need to walk down the high street, after work and see shops like Wasabi, or the list could go on. But with people who are just going in, and the food which isn't eaten that day is thrown away. So there's so much food which is being thrown away.
And yeah, we basically want to help reduce that number down to zero. So the 600,000 tons of edible food that is wasted, it's purely edible kitchen waste that is wasted by kitchens, literally because there's nobody there to sell it to. And when a restaurant shuts up shop, it's like, what am I going to do with all this food? I'm going to have to bin it. And I think the statistic is like something like 0.2% of that actually gets redistributed as surplus. So you might see something like the Prep Foundation, which will preach that they're constantly redistributing the surplus baguettes that they have left over at the end of the day. But in the grand scheme of things, like, it's not really enough. 0.2%, when you consider the factors that we mentioned earlier, is absolutely nothing. So plus what those guys are doing can tend to stay very much within the restaurant and the charities perhaps that they're working with. But we've created this app and made it available to everyone so that we can really try to raise awareness of what is a global problem. So yeah, the Too Good To Go app, how it works is you download it on your phone. It's available now on the App Store and the Play Store, and the GPS locator will automatically return a list of restaurants that are located closest to you that have surplus food available that they would usually throw away. And then it's a really simple case, like it says on here. You just make your purchase. Everything on the app is between £2 and £3.80, or £3.99 actually now, in fact. So that's £2 for maybe like a lunch that would usually cost £6. So you go collect it at 2:30, 3 o'clock when they finish their lunch service, or the £3.99, which is the highest price thing that we have on the app, is for a sort of like a Rodizio Portuguese restaurant in Leeds. It's usually about £24.99. So we've reduced the price, but we're really cautious to never advertise ourselves as being cheap, because as soon as we start doing that, then restaurants will turn around to us and say, oh, well, why do we want our food to be like associated with a cheap brand and something that's selling it as a discount? So we're trying to go the other way and say to you guys, well, actually, this food is really good. It would have been binned, but it's so good that it's worth paying just like a couple of pound for, or £3 for. So yeah, come onto that app, find a restaurant close to you where we have about 150, 160 now around the country. Make your purchase, get your mobile receipt, and then head off to the restaurant to collect it in your specified pickup window. And then you get your food in a biodegradable sugarcane box, and then you get to enjoy it on the go.
Yeah, I think it's worth adding as well, with the nature of it being food surplus, there's not that aspect of choice, which I think we find quite a liberating experience in a world of choices where I still struggle to choose a film on a Friday night after going through about 15 YouTube trailers. It's quite nice to turn up and have a meal picked for you. But again, if there is a choice left, you do get the lovely choice as well. And I think the thing to highlight here is utilising technology for a social impact, but for profit for purpose. So, you know, the technology is there for us to use, and it's the way we apply it. It's the application of technology. And again, you know, apps now are an absolute everyday occurrence or phenomenon. I'll skip that word. And you know, we rely on them on a daily basis, and something that we are just utilising here. So I think if we were to rewind back to 2012, as I said earlier, when I really came into contact with the scale of food waste, I think this project couldn't have survived because the technology wasn't there. But the technology is here, and it's developing each day. It's getting better, and it is a way for us to address issues of a social importance and really raise the profile, but actually bring about change as well.
And a big part of that, what Jamie's saying about the tech facilitating what we're doing, and the fact that this wouldn't really be possible anyway, apart from an app, is that the restaurant needs to have complete control over what it's doing. So the restaurant can come on at any day and quickly change how many portions it has available, change the collection time, and they've got a fully communicative platform between themselves and the customer, and we've been able to exploit that technology to be able to facilitate that, and there's still a long way to go, but without mobile apps, and say if it was just a website, then we wouldn't have this two-way platform that we take for granted now because it's everywhere. But if you wind the clock back, say 5 years, this really wouldn't have been something that we'd have been able to do.
So what's available, sorry, quickly,
Yeah.
on that very subject, is the app's obviously live, so therefore what's available is live.
Yep.
Restaurants say at lunchtime will be able to say, right, this particular service isn't going very well, the special's not selling very well, therefore it can go into that thing.
Yeah, so it would be food which, had it not been picked up or ordered, would have ended up in the bin that day. That then becomes available for a customer to pre-order and collect at a allotted pickup time.
So we're going on the fact that many restaurants will have food surplus, because, for example, if you walk down Covent Garden to a place like Pepe Italian Pizza. They'll have all of their pizzas out on the counter so that they can do quick service, because we're driven by convenience nowadays, which unfortunately means that more food is produced so that it's quicker to serve the customer, and then more food is wasted. So they can, a place like Pepe will have every day, it knows it's going to waste at least like 10 portions of food, so it has 10 portions available to buy every single day, so you can buy that on the day. Everything's done like on the day basis, so if you ordered for today, you can only pick it up today. And then we also work with other restaurants who will not necessarily have like a food surplus all the time, but then when they do, they can just quickly come onto the app and make a note, say, guys, we've got like 10 portions available, one quick press of a button, and then a push notification will get sent out to all the people who have made that restaurant a favourite, so that instantly you guys are alerted and you can go collect food from places that have just made it available.
Is this profitable for those businesses?
Yeah, so again, what we are trying to highlight is this isn't an additional revenue stream for someone to profitize off food waste, but it's there to recover the costs incurred in
Is there
food
a
waste.
danger if it goes really well? Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, carry on.
Is there a danger if it goes particularly well for a particular restaurant that they can build that into their business model and then actually go back to square one, whereby they've got their normal trade, they have their allocation of surplus trade, and then start doing their business model on the basis of buying more stuff in, and then getting back into the throwing stuff away as wastage because it's still profitable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saying, you know,
So-
to build that into.
Yeah, so the way that we sort of dodge that bullet or prevent that from happening is through our pricing scale. So things are on the app between £2 to £3.80 or £3.99 in one case. So it's not there for huge margins. You know, if you're selling a steak for £3.50, then I question where you're sourcing a steak from. So it's not there for people to make masses of money from, but it's purely there to recover some of the fixed costs. So the cost of the food, you know, things like the energy incurred in actually the cooking, the waste disposal costs as well. And it's really there as, as I say, for them to recover these costs, because something is better than nothing. Food is better in belly than in a bin, is a phrase we like to go by.
But it's a really good question because, this is where we sort of pull on the heartstrings of the restaurants, because lots of places or lots of managers that we've come into contact with in the restaurant industry are first and foremost concerned about their bottom line and covering their costs. And then as soon as we say to them, well, the average cost of a plate of wasted food, according to research done by WRAP, is 97p. So if a restaurant's throwing away 10 portions of food a day, that's £10 a day, adds up over the course of the year. Instantly, by coming on board with us, they completely nullify that. Then they get to make a little bit of extra revenue on it, which should hopefully cover the cost of producing the food itself. And then they also get the huge exposure and everything through the app and the commitment to being sustainable. It's a bit like what Nick was saying, for example, when he's talking about CSR sort of being a little tick box in, I suppose, in the corporate world, in like the big corporate world, where companies are embracing this whole concept of share value and really integrating it into their core. Maybe we have moved past the days of CSR, but I think in the case of a lot of restaurants, they haven't even got there yet. So we're helping restaurants go from being just a restaurant to a restaurant or a cafe or a market stall with a CSR policy. So we're talking to organisations such as like the Sustainable Restaurant Association to find out ways that we can really solidify that and integrate it into their core as well as ours.
Can I just quickly take the same question from the supermarket perspective, just to demonstrate the complexity? So supermarkets have to have full shelf policies. So if you turn up at a supermarket at 9 o'clock at night, it can't be half bare because they're trying to minimise their waste. So they've got to create that environment where they're ramping up availability. They will have more waste, but at the same time, they don't want to promote the fact that they're throwing away thousands and thousands of tonnes. It's a very delicate message to get right. There are costs of transportation and aerobic digestion which can be an offset, but all of this has to go into the mix. And it gets so complicated that most supermarkets get to a place where they say, do you know what, it's just the right thing to do, and as long as we're transparent about what we're trying to do, we won't get it right for everybody all the time, but it doesn't matter. We've got to be brave about it and just keep taking the steps on that journey. And it's probably the same for you guys from a restaurant point of view.
Yeah, exactly.
I can also imagine from a restaurant's point of view, because it's a very, very competitive market, if they do start building into their business model, because it's not a big profit maker, but it does enable them to be maybe look at their own margins and cut down on their obsolescence, and even make
Exactly.
them more competitive, which is going to help everybody as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what we say is that the ultimate goal for us is to be able to use Too Good To Go as a waste management platform for restaurants. So through the restaurant side of the app, there's a comprehensive statistics section which will tell them how many portions are sold through the app today, the week, the month, the year. And by a manager logging on and saying, oh, well, we've sold 5 portions on Monday, but then 20 portions on Friday, perhaps we should start producing less food. Because it still makes more financial sense and more sustainable sense to produce less food in the first place, rather than selling it through the app. Like, the app is essentially just a safety net. But in order to reach that level where we can start being more consultative and more like two-way about it, we need to be able to make ourselves like a bit more legitimate first and be able to like grow around the country. But that's hopefully where we want to get to.
Okay, if we can.
Yeah, next one. So yeah, who do we work with? We're coming to the point now where we're in talks with some really exciting chains. So hopefully there's going to be some more on that in the next couple of weeks. But we've got, I suppose, like one of the biggest wasters of food at buffet restaurants, as we can all imagine. Like, you walk around a buffet, bar supermarkets, of course, but yeah, you can walk around a buffet and we speak to places that will throw out like 50 portions of food. I walked into a place on Kingsway in London, a buffet restaurant, and they're like, oh yeah, we throw out like 100 portions of food every day. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to do something about it? And they're like, well, you have to speak to the manager, and then you try and speak to the manager, and then that's a different story. But anyway, we work with mostly independents, and yeah, we're touching on some chains, but we're currently operating in London, Birmingham, Brighton, Leeds, and then hopefully Manchester real soon as well.
So I guess the story so far, as Chris has said, we're live in 4 cities, soon to be Manchester as well, and we're looking to expand. And I think our big thing we want to do is this isn't an initiative or a project which is limited to the major cities in the UK, but we want it to be a movement which everyone can take part in. And I guess this is the feedback which we've received so far. So we've been having requests from people from Bridgend in Wales to Stirling in Scotland. Like, it's huge, and everyone wants to be a part of this. So this is our next step, is to scale up to be across the UK, and not constrained to the major cities. So we have, as Chris has said, over 100 partners in London, and they range from small salad bars, market stalls to hotels. So we've recently acquired our first hotel, which has been brilliant, and it's showing that it's a model which can be adapted from a market stall to a hotel which caters for hundreds plus people a night. So it really is, it's an adaptable model, and something which is proving very, very popular. We've been blessed with some amazing PR of late, and that has translated to 70,000 downloads of the app on iOS and Android across the UK, with over 4,000 meals now being rescued from landfills since our launch date on the 1st of June. So that's just over, about 15 weeks ago, 13 weeks ago. So we're really lucky with the amount of downloads we have, and the amount of food which we have rescued is actually something we're quite proud of at the moment, which translates to about sort of 4 tons of CO2 emissions being rescued from being released into the atmosphere. So, we've been, again, if we sort of move forward, we can see how we've gone slightly viral. So we've gone from being in blog posts across Brighton, and when we first launched on the 1st of June, which were good exposure, to now having videos with AJ Plus, for example, which was viewed over 5.2 million times, which is phenomenal. That was like the best day of our lives. Things on BuzzFeed as well. So we've been really lucky with the amount of exposure we've had. I think this here is part of of the growing trends around food waste being changed. So the Evening Standard campaign at the moment, again, is raising the profile of food waste, but it's becoming more of a newsworthy topic.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, it really is. It's on the cusp of really penetrating consumer awareness at the moment. I don't know, does anybody say about the first food waste supermarket that opened up in Leeds last week? So that's, again, run by the Real Junk Food Project, who are like sort of our idols in many ways, I suppose. But they've, they started out just intercepting food from bins, or intercepting is like a sort of euphemism for just stealing from bins, I guess, that supermarkets throw out. But they've got to a point now where they have so much food that would have been thrown away, that they've had to open up a food waste supermarket, which is amazing that they're doing that, and it's all on like a pay-as-you-feel basis as well. And by being able to hopefully push the national awareness of this a little bit more, like if we've been able to touch even 1% of those 5 million people who perhaps weren't previously aware of food waste in the restaurant industry, then we've been able to educate however many 1% is of 5 million, 50,000 people on a topic that they might not have been previously unaware of. So yeah, first and foremost, it's a platform that we want to be able to educate people through. So if you just go to the next slide, there's quite a few headlines. I mean, yeah, we really, as I was saying, we're really cautious not to advertise ourselves as being cheap, but unfortunately the big perception when we speak to everyone and when we speak to journalists is like, oh, cheap food. So they stick words like cheap in the headlines. So that's something that we'll be constantly battling against. But I mean, it's always better to have the exposure than to not have any exposure at all. So yeah, we're lucky that we've had that. And then we've got some, I suppose we need to try to focus like our media efforts a little bit more now, because they're sort of popping up from everywhere, aren't they really? We need to be able to like streamline and hopefully help. We've just launched a crowdfunding campaign, which we're trying to get into consumer awareness as well. So if anybody feels like pledging just like a little small amount on our crowdfunder website to help us take the project nationwide, then that would be really cool.
Another shameless plug by Chris. But again, this publicity is translated into the app being downloaded 70,000 times, but it also led to us being the #1 downloaded food and drink app last weekend. We were trending on the App Store as well. So again, it's something which is really gaining traction, and something which people are really interested in to take part of.
So yeah, this is just some of the stuff that we've been featured in. Has anybody heard of someone called Shailene Woodley? No, I hadn't until she retweeted us, and then she's got like 1 million followers or something. So that was really cool. And then Ellie Goulding gave us a retweet, and it's being able to use people in the same way that Nick was talking about using brands and getting brands to push the message across because they have more power and more weight within society. We're trying to reach out to people who can help us raise more awareness. So, I mean, we've been shamelessly tweeting like Sadiq Khan, for example, and other guys who we think would be really interested in giving us a bit of a plug so we can help raise awareness of this a little bit more. And then if we just go to the next one, yeah, just some like numbers of how much we've been able to. Since we started on the 1st of June, we saved like 350 portions of food in the first month, and then that actually dropped a little bit in July, which was when we were just operating in Brighton and Leeds, and me and Jamie were sat there thinking like, why on earth have we like gone down? Why have we shrunk after our first month? Like, what on earth are we going to do? But then, yeah, we launched in London at the start of August, and subsequently the number of orders picked up and awareness really grew, because yeah, it's just about getting it out there, and we've been lucky enough to have like the media that have helped us do that. But yeah, an increase of 626% from July to August, and that's grown a little bit more coming on to September as well. And then with that, we've been able to attract more restaurants, because we need to make sure that we have, from a business point of view, I mean, that's the main thing as well. We have to make sure that we can continue to operate this as a sustainable business, because no matter what our goals are, if we can't generate a revenue and fund ourselves, then the whole thing will never work. So we have to always make sure that we've got enough supply on the restaurant side to cater for the demand. So we're constantly looking for new partners to come on board, so that when you guys download the app, the first thing you think isn't, oh well, there's nothing near me, and give us 1 star on the App Store, which is what quite a lot of people do, which I think is quite mean. But yeah, if you go to the next one. This is just some figures about like the app downloads, just to show our growth. We're on like 70,000 downloads now. We've had like over 100,000 website hits in the past month, and again, as I was saying earlier, if just 1% of those people that have come to the website weren't previously aware of the issue, then we've been able to make some sort of a difference, and hopefully we can keep growing that to the point where we can work with perhaps governments and start affecting, hopefully in the long term, like policymakers, so we can get to a stage where food waste actually becomes illegal. So in France, food waste is now forbidden. Likewise in Italy, restaurants, supermarkets aren't allowed to waste food. In France, they've just introduced a new legislation which bans plastic packaging. So in 2020, there won't be any plastic packaging, plastic cutlery anywhere in France. So we want to get to a point where we can say to our government, well, if these guys are doing it, then why can't we do it? Plus, we've got all these people who have subscribed to what we're doing, who have downloaded our app, who have used the app, that are clearly showing an interest and showing a desire to make the change. So if the change is happening on the bottom, then why can't it happen on the top as well? So if you want to go, what's next?
Yeah, what next across the UK? So we want to be expanding the amount of cities we're operating. So currently, we're soon to be in five cities, and we set ourselves an achievable goal that we think of being operating in 10 cities by the end of 2016. So hopefully you're going to see us popping up in cities all around the UK, and changing people's perspectives around food waste, but also showing that social businesses can succeed.